Hello everyone, and welcome to The Man Behind the Curtain. I'm Randy Young, the guy in the red shoes, and I've been in the video production business my entire career, and it's taken me around the world a few times. But more importantly, I've had the opportunity to work with some of the most creative people in television, and boy do they have stories to tell about the business and the people who make it happen. We've always been told, ignore the man behind the curtain, but you can talk to me. Okay, let's get started. I'm sitting here with good friends, Andy Beu and his wife, Stacey Beu. Hi, guys.
Hi, Randy.
I want to start out because not a lot of people understand what we do for a living, so let's explain it. Give me just a short bio that led you to this today. Andy, start.
Wow, short bio. Okay, so I'll keep it as short as I can, Randy.
Sure.
15 years old is when I started in this business as a professional doing the road company of Hello Dolly with Carol Channing. And we opened in Los Angeles, we played the White House, we went to Chicago, did all kinds of stuff, and eventually got my diploma on stage in Houston, Texas. Carol gave me and my best friend Blake our diplomas on stage. So that was the beginning. That eventually brought me into New York, where I joined with the company of The Happy Time, Robert Goulet, Gower Champion show again, and then I realized I wasn't as good as I thought I was as a dancer, so I applied to Juilliard, got into Juilliard, and then from there ended up doing 9 Broadway shows. So that's the short end of it. During the last couple of years of doing shows, I knew that a dancer's life wasn't going to be able to continue for me. And I wondered what I really wanted to do, which was direct and choreograph. My good friend, my mentor, Cyril Richard, the original Captain Hook, said if you want to be a good director someday, become a good stage manager first. So that's where I started as a stage manager. That led me into the industrial world as a stage manager, which eventually became director, choreographer, and a speech coach. And here I am.
And here you are. Stacey, your turn.
Pretty much the same. Actually, my father was a Broadway stagehand. So he also was a production manager in industrial. So I grew up knowing what this world was that we're doing now. So when I graduated high school, I was a dancer. I had a lot of lessons and training, and I went to my first audition in New York, open call, and I got the job. My father was a production manager on it, so I'm sure he gave somebody a little elbow and they gave me a little bit of help. But it was for the Oldsmobile Company in 1973. So the first gig was doing their new dealer announcement show for the 1974 Oldsmobiles, and the tour was a 21-city tour with 2 crews piggybacking throughout the United States to 21 cities. And I had the time of my life, and I thought, if I could do this 1 more time, 2 more times, 3 more times, somebody's going to pay me to see the world. That was it. I didn't ever want to do a Broadway show. This was my milieu. So I did that I was a dancer for many years, then I was a dance captain, then I was a choreographer, assistant choreographer, then I was a production manager, then I went in costumes. So I put my fingers in everywhere. So I saw pretty much the whole front and back of the business, and it was my life. Still is.
Do you miss the bright lights of Broadway?
No. I couldn't. For me, I was too much project oriented. I like the beginning, the middle, and the end. I didn't, 12 shows a week was not for me. For other people, God bless them. I know some people who were in a Broadway show still for like 5-6 years, some 9. Some of those chorus line folks just keep on going.
That was a good paycheck.
I know.
But it's a rugged life.
It's a rugged life, yeah. For me, at that point, the idea was to work with as many people as you possibly could. So as soon as you're opened on Broadway, you were out the door auditioning for any other show that was coming up.
For the next show.
So that you could work with a different choreographer, a different director, or whatever. So that was the goal. And not to sign anything more than a 6-month contract, but yeah.
But this business of the industrials blends into Broadway. So many of the folks that we work with, not just the casts, but all of the
technicians.
The technicians.
Sure.
They are the best that there are, you know, and they come from Broadway because it's a pretty good paycheck also. And they're the ones that are choreographing these shows or lighting them or doing the sound design. Tony Miola, Otz Monderlef, they all did the industrials.
And I filled the gaps between shows.
Yeah.
Doing Broadway shows.
Sure. So the gap you talked about, there's not as much of a gap now. It's regular business. It's steady business. It's good. And you're...
Well, sometimes.
Well, we're all freelance,
Yes,
I get it. You
yes.
know, and we're all scraping along trying to make a living. But the differences between that and Broadway, was it easy to make the transition, do you think?
Yeah, again, because you knew that you had the best of the best that you're working with. The difference for me was a Broadway show, you had time. You had time to develop, you worked, months choreographing the whole show. And then you would do out-of-town tryouts. So there was all that time put behind it. What we do now, sometimes you do it in 3 to 5 days.
Yeah, it's a week.
And, so it's much more intense. The drive that you have to get through some of those days. I mean, back earlier on when we were doing like Microsoft and stuff, we did 24 hours, 48 hours, something, without any sleep because there was so much to get done. Technology has really helped so much in all that if you go past 11 o'clock now, it's strange. Thank God. But there are times we used to just burn the candle to try to get before that show date, because that show date for an industrial is set. That's when everybody flies in. They want to see that show, and it better be right. You have one shot to make it right.
But don't you think that a long time ago, earlier on, like back in the 70s and 80s, we did have more time?
We did.
Like the State Farm.
State Farm, absolutely.
You had an equity cast, and you would rehearse for 3 weeks at least, so, and that sometimes is more than a Broadway show, but that's earlier on. And we would have the band in the room while we were rehearsing.
Right.
It wasn't just getting the music 2 days ahead of time and saying, create
choreograph,
something,
go.
But as of late, it is more like a drive-through.
Yeah.
One of the things that I found, I came from broadcast television, and one of the things that I found when I first started doing industrial shows and corporate shows was that the producers and the clients were amazed at some of the tricks that I brought with me. Did you find that they were amazed at the talent that you brought to them that they maybe hadn't seen or didn't know that they could apply to the show that they're doing?
I don't know if we had that many tricks up our sleeves. Where I think what you do, Randy, in video, you have things to play with that you can do. You can do fade ins, you can do stars, you can do all that kind of stuff. For me, it's that three-dimensional piece of the full stage set that has to come alive. And it's not that focused kind of moment that you could pick up in TV.
Yeah, but maybe they hadn't seen that kind of talent brought to their events before.
Yes, okay. I see where you're going.
In terms of tricks, we had connections.
Yeah.
So sometimes we didn't have to have a full-out audition. I could just call my friends who were in Broadway shows, who were between shows, and say, "You want a gig?"
Yeah.
And these were how they kept alive when they're going for the big one. So, and there was a lot of them in the days. I mean, we counted up over 25 car shows we've done. Every car show did a dealer announcement show. And there was so much work, and they all had
Car companies.
Car companies.
We've done at least 20 of them.
Oh, sure.
20 companies.
Yeah.
But speaking of those kind of people, we'll do a quick little story on Bill Gates. When we did a Microsoft show in New York on Broadway, titled "How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying," kind of a ripoff from that Broadway show.
We were introducing Windows for Work groups.
Yeah, way back.
At the Gershwin Theater.
Yes.
Or the Eurosnow or whatever.
And it was the true book show where we had actors on stage, and Stacey was able to call people that she knew and say, "We're doing the show. Do you want to be part of it?" And of course, everybody was like, "Oh, that'll be great." So that kind of trick, we did have that one up our sleeves, to be able to pull that off. It was the worst received show ever for
Oh, no.
Microsoft.
They didn't understand the theater aspect.
Because it was a
They were waiting
press
for
event.
information.
And
Yeah.
the press was sitting there going like, huh?
We did the opening number, it was barely a,
And Bill
was
Gates,
streamed.
Bill Gates had an acting role in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He played came out with this box of tools and said, here guys, this is what's gonna make your business better. And he sat down at the computer and stuff. He was great. He was really
a good
fabulous to work with.
and that was fun because they actually made all of the performers go to computer school.
Right.
So it would look very authentic.
Okay.
Yeah, they had to learn.
On stage, they all had to learn how to do those computers, and they did a great
Oh,
job.
the C prompt, oh no! So, I mean, that's how terrible it was. Anyway,
Central, oh, delete,
yeah, that was
EGA.
quite an event, quite
Okay,
a
so
show.
you went to computer school and they did all the research and all
Yeah.
that to help the actors portray better and work better.
Right.
You don't get that now.
No.
But when the phone rings and the producer calls you and says, hey, Andy Stacey, we have this gig, here are the dates, what do you do next?
Well, you ask, what is the scope of work? What will we be doing? Is there a cast? Is there talent? Is there, do we need to do some speech coaching? What are we looking for? What's the message? And then usually you collaborate with the creative director and find out what all that is. Put it on the table and just say how we can connect the dots. And in the old days, when you had these things, you would have, and I miss them very much, the big production meetings around the table where everybody sat in the same room.
Rolled out the plans,
Rolled out
and
the
everybody would
plans,
look at it and
and
go
the
like,
cost-
oh, well, maybe could we move that? But
Or maybe, what if we do this? Maybe we could do this, and the costume renderings were on the wall,
Yeah.
and someone play the music. Not anymore. It's
No.
like everything's like show in a box, go. It's a little quicker these days.
But basically it's working with the creative director, the producers, giving them a budget on what we think it might cost. And I always do that estimate saying, this is what I think, and I can't tell you for sure that that's where it's going to end up. Depends on how much development you want to do with it. If you want people flying, that's a whole different ball game. So, but yeah, it's that collaboration basically with that, excuse me, with the creative director and the producer of what's your messaging, what do you want to achieve for this client? What's their takeaway?
Is their takeaway the value to the production that you see? Is that the value that you bring to it? to take
Hopefully,
away? Yeah.
hopefully that we bring that messaging alive for that audience, so the executive doesn't have to do it all by himself. That there's an entertainment, that the audience enjoys this moment that leads up to something, bringing out a new car, bringing out an executive or whatever. Yeah.
Some of these meetings go all day long. They start at 8 o'clock and they don't get out until 5. So somewhere along the line, it helps to have some sort of entertainment value, just to entertain and to move it along a little bit. And hopefully some of that has some messaging where they're like, oh, okay, wake up, all right,
Yeah.
we're back.
Does it introduce creative differences? How do you manage that?
Between us?
No,
we don't have
between
a creative difference.
Between you and the producers or the creative director.
What do you mean
Yeah.
you want to do that?
Well, ultimately they will win. It is their show, it's their party. They're paying for it, or they're being paid for it. So it's really up to us to, we can suggest, we can say, maybe.
Did you think about this?
Or, what if it was 10 people, not just 2, or this was
It's a fine line of how far you can push, creatively, without interfering with the creative director's vision of what they want to do. So it's a fine line that you have to kind of thread. But usually we're pretty good at convincing them, wouldn't it be better if we did something like this?
I find it's great to convince them that your idea is their idea.
Yes, exactly.
It's
Perfect.
an art form in itself.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about younger people coming into this business.
Mm-hmm.
We're at the age where maybe I don't want to do this a whole lot longer.
Right.
Do you see many younger people taking up this mantle, taking up the task of leaving the bright lights of Broadway and coming into the industrial world?
I've always tried, a lot of the times that I do get jobs and I get, we were talking about it, it's not really awards anymore, it's recognition, where I need to hire a big team for myself, sometimes 15, 20 people. And I always hire usually dancers who are ready to stop they get married, they have children, whatever, or actors who are trying to look for something else. So to expose them for what might be an opportunity or a potential, to introduce them to this whole backside of not being on the stage anymore. And sometimes if I can't do the gig, I'll say, you take it, go ahead with it. I think there's a lot of people who become to a certain age, especially if you're a performer, that it is, you start looking, what else can I do?
Sure. Because you said it earlier, especially as a dancer too, but that people don't know what this industry really involves.
Right.
It has so many different things to it. The stagehands, the electricians, the stage managers, the show caller, all of those people, audio, huge. Your department of video, huge. So if we can expose that to some of the younger people, like bringing them on as award winner, recognition people that are going to help with it, they get to see, they go like, oh wow, this is what this is about. So hopefully it cranks a little bit of interest in them to go, so, because I've had them call me and say, so how do I get into stage managing?
How do I start that?
Hey, call Susan Green, that's all. That's what you do.
Well, she's one of the best, that's for sure. You talked, and you coach executives.
Yes.
On how to present. One of the things that amazes me is that these guys, you get these presenters who walk on the stage and they may have never read the speech before. They're reading off a teleprompter and this is the first time they look at it. I don't understand that.
Yeah. Well, hopefully that's why bring me in. What I prefer to do is at least ask for 2 days with the executive at their headquarters, with their writers, with their staff of people, so that we could sit down and go through what it is that your messaging is, make sense of it, block it out so that this is section A, section B, section C. I always try to take their speeches and say, just separate it into 3 different parts, so that as you're reading teleprompter, if you get lost, you know what part 2 is, and you can go to that. So you're not up there fumbling. It helps in your mind that, in this first section, I'm going to be talking about the electronics in the car. I'm going to be talking about how it drives, Second section, I'm going to be talking about how we're going to advertise it, Third section, I'm going to be talking about pricing. So at least they have something in their head, whether it's words or not, that they have an A, a B, and a C that they have to get through in that 20 minutes. And the other thing that I always try to recommend, because usually, as you know, Randy, some of them go 30, 40 minutes long. I always say, try to keep it under 20, because you're going to, 30% of what you say is all that audience is going to walk away with, if you're lucky. So 70% of what you're talking about is out the window. Nobody cares. They didn't hear it. So you've got to focus on what is that 30% that you really want them to walk away with, and save that for part 3, because at the end of it, that's what they're all going to be listening for.
The last 3 minutes.
That's the last 3 minutes. That's the point to hit. So.
But back to his point about why they've never even read it is, I think they're all so busy that sometimes it's just like the week before or 3 or 4 days before the show.
That's when they start to focus.
When they start to focus.
Yeah.
So,
Well, yeah, they're only presenting to 5,000 of their most important people.
I know. But by having that 2 days with them, 2 or 3 days with them at their headquarters, they can focus a lot better. If they don't do that, if I have to walk into a ballroom and it's the first time that he comes out on stage, first time that he's met me, the trust factor, you got to have that trust first. He's got to trust me that I'm not going to steer you down the wrong way. I'm going to make sure that you're comfortable with what you're doing all the way through. But that's really hard to achieve in that 1 hour that the guy comes in and reads it for the first time. So.
One of my favorite sayings is that they wouldn't have hired me to make you look bad.
Right. Yeah.
We're here to make you look good.
Absolutely.
Do you have trouble getting them out of their heads?
Getting them out of their heads.
Get the executive out of their head?
Yeah, that's one of the things that I talk about sometimes, depending on who it is, that you have this internal dialogue that every actor has in their head that goes in the back. God, do I look good? Did my tie fit? Did I zip up my zipper? Before I came on. Those kind of little things are always in the brain, and it's the hardest thing to shut off. But that's why actors do actor preparation. That before they go on, they focus on what they're doing, turn off everything you possibly can, so you're not worried about your wife back home, you're not worried about your kids, you're not thinking about this, you're thinking focused only on what you have to present. And that's real hard. And if you can do that, that little voice ain't gonna be talking to you. So it's just something that it takes practice to shut off that infernal
and it
dialogue.
takes someone like you to explain that to them.
Yeah, because you don't know it. Yeah, most people don't know that. Yeah.
So tell me about the Crazies. What are the stories?
Wow. Where do we begin?
Yeah, let's delve into that for a moment.
Okay, you have to start with
Which one?
Lee Iacocca.
Lee Iacocca. Okay.
This is when he is stepping down.
Okay.
It's his farewell.
From Ford or Chrysler?
No, Chrysler.
Chrysler.
Okay.
It's his farewell to Chrysler
So it's a big blowout at the Thomas and Mack Center
in Las Vegas.
in Las Vegas, where they actually built up the whole ground floor, the hockey floor, up about
12 feet.
They put the whole all
Covered
around.
it.
All right.
And they had the Pentastar with the
On top of
fireworks
that.
on top of
Okay.
it. And beneath it was a 78-piece orchestra.
And
So-
pathways for cars and all that
Sure.
other stuff. So the audience couldn't see anything
Right.
except this gorgeous Pentastar that was there in the center of the stage.
So everyone is there. I mean, it's Wayne Newton of that day.
Sure.
The McGuire
The
sisters,
sisters,
Kenny Rogers, Ricardo Montalban, the entire cast of Enter the Night at the time. Tip O'Neill is talking.
It went on for quite a while.
Dick Damone.
I think we had.
They were all there.
I think because we went through all the Chrysler cars too, the K car. So we must have had 50 cars out on that stage, including race cars for Fittipaldi, who drove out in one of them. So there's so much in this whole show. But on top of all the stars that she mentioned, there was the closing, which was Frank Sinatra.
It doesn't get any bigger than
Because
that.
Lee Iacocca loved Frank Sinatra. Frank doesn't come for rehearsals. He's only going to fly in the day of. So we're dealing with, the producer, myself, are dealing with Hank, his guy. And
When
Hank,
you say the day of, you mean during the show.
Yeah,
The show
kind of,
started,
yeah.
still not there.
Yeah.
So-
Frank is not there until halfway through the show. But Hank, 2 days before, we bring him in, show him the set. He looks at it and says, wow, that's really impressive stuff. He said, but so that Pentastar in the middle, I said, that's for Frank. I said, he'll come underneath the stage. Nobody will see him. He'll go past his orchestra to make sure his son is there to conduct for him, all that. But there's an elevator that lifts him up in the center of the Pentastar.
Sure.
And he says, well, Frank's got vertigo. He won't do that. We built all of this for that moment with fireworks
Which
around.
is not going to happen now.
Yeah, right? so Hank says he's just not going to do that. Michael Hotop, scenic designer.
Sure.
Michael, come in here. We got a problem. So Michael designs a plug in front of the Pentastar just for Frank with his teleprompters built on it. We had teleprompters up on the Pentastar surrounding this elevator lift, so he had words to be able to sing. Yeah, he shows up. We're halfway through the show. I'm explaining to him, come here, look through the curtain, because we were at one end of the hockey ring, the Pentastar's at the other. I said, you're going to walk straight all the way down there. Then when you get there, we're going to approach a little bit of a stage in front of that has your teleprompters. Your son will be right in front of you, down below, underneath with the orchestra, and that's your position. He says, okay. And his wife, Barbara, says, you good with that? And he said, yeah. Time comes to it. I send him out, because I'm on headset. Time for Frank, send him. He walks out. He takes a lot of applause, standing ovation, all that kind of stuff. He gets to the little plug of the stage and steps on it. And he looks around, and then he looks in front of him, and here's this gorgeous Pentastar. And he goes, that's where I should be. And he looks back at me, and he gets off this unit and starts to climb up a 2-foot wide plank, because each part of the Pentastar was only 2 feet leading up to the center.
It was never meant to be walked
Open on each of the other platforms.
Oh, it's a three-dimensional
Yeah.
Oh, I was thinking it was painted on the stage.
No. This is built.
Oh.
And all of the diamonds
But-
in between is open. The
Yeah.
orchestra is down there, so one.
Everything in between each one is an open space. So
And
we can lift the
orchestra.
orchestra, car
God.
coming up from underneath, all that kind of stuff.
That spells disaster.
Totally. So as he starts to walk, everybody on, what's he doing? What's he doing? Stagehands are running underneath, pushing musicians out of the way, walking with him so he doesn't fall. He gets all the way up there, thank God, and he looks around.
But he's walking like this.
He's like teetering, like this is
sailor,
kind of fun, you know. He gets up to the top, which is about this big, and he gets up to the top and he looks down at his son. He says, "Okay, let's go." Downbeat music, and it's the song "My Way" that he's singing.
Of course.
And he starts, and then what's he say?
Where are the words? They told me they would have the words.
Because we didn't have any teleprompters set up because we took them down to the other platform.
He didn't remember them. We kind of like hummed a little bit, sang a little bit, hummed a little bit.
And he stayed up there, and then no fireworks for the big finale, none of that kind of stuff. It was, so that
It was very memorable.
very,
Right?
one of
That's
those
incredible.
days you just go like, oh man, thank God it's over. Jeez.
How did
Yeah.
the audience take it?
Oh, they were
They loved
fine.
it.
You know, it's Frank Sinatra.
It's Frank Sinatra. He can do anything he
He
wants.
could do anything.
He could do anything.
Wow.
Okay, you have to tell us
Chrysler. The other Chrysler, here, it was in Orlando. Roy Sears was our TD.
Dolphin Hotel.
Dolphin Hotel. Had a long driveway down the middle of the ballroom. At the end, there was a turntable or something. We had a prototype car, and the driving team, his wife wanted to drive the car. And the guy said, sure, she can do that. So in rehearsals, dress rehearsal, night before the show, she gets behind the car, gates open. I can't remember what the reveal was of this prototype. The car comes out, she starts to drive, and she's going a little bit fast, a little bit faster, and we're going like, she's got to slow down. She never stops. Right off the end of the stage. Boom.
The prototype.
The prototype. Roy Sears, all the stagehands with forklifts, lift this
God,
crippled
Roy Sears.
car
He was
back up on stage. They
almost
push it back.
single-handedly.
The whole night was with the
Design team. And
everybody trying to ship in doors and stuff to refix it. But we had it for the show. Of course, she didn't drive. Ever
I guess
again.
not.
Never again.
You have to tell
What?
the Democratic convention.
Okay, that was earlier when I was saying to become a good stage manager
Right.
first. I did the Pepsi show. That's where I met my lovely wife, Stacey, as a stage manager. And that was with Emiro Ferrantino, famous lighting designer company,
sure.
and all that kind of stuff. Emmy loved me, thank God. And we did, he asked me to do the Democratic National Convention, because that was his thing. So at Madison Square Garden, I was down underneath the stage, because that's where you lived when you do that kind of a event, and had all the television monitors there. I had ABC, CBS, all those things in my ear. And we get to the point where it's supposed to go over the top. Carter was supposed to be over the top. This is 1981.
Jimmy Carter.
Jimmy Carter,
Yeah, I remember.
you know, he got the votes to go over the top. And big balloon drop, right? Big balloon drop go. I'm on a radio, because at that time, the balloon drops were built in a box with plastic on the outside,
Right.
with a ripcord that somebody had to pull up in the grid to let the thing release. Pulled the cord, only one little corner of, we had three of these big boxes up there. One little corner popped open, and it was one drop at a time, a balloon coming down, which kind of said the whole thing about Jimmy Carter. But I had so many people yelling in my ear. The pool camera, you know what
Yeah.
pool camera is?
Sure.
Pool camera, boom, shooting up to it. And I said, get off that shot, get off that shot. We're trying to get it to work. And the guys up there in the grid are shaking it, trying to make more balloons. It just never happened.
It never happened.
Never happened.
And you can find it on YouTube. And
Yeah.
I'll bet.
It's in
Yeah.
the commentary, you know. Of the
God, that was a
You
nightmare.
can always find the disasters on YouTube.
It was
Yeah.
a nightmare for me.
Yeah.
So that's the end of my stage management. At that point, I said, okay, I think I better start directing.
Too much stress.
Stacey, you must have some stories.
Well, when American Idol became very popular, this is like back in like early 2000s, when you do these shows, they're in arenas. It takes so long for everyone to load in, like 45 minutes. So typically, you know, they would hire like the gaucho actors, just something that was inconsequential, you know, and just to entertain people and sort of like white noise. So when this happened, I said, there are thousands and thousands of people in this company. Some of them must know how to play a piccolo or something, right? You know? So we
Because 18,000 people used to come.
3 different ways.
Sure.
People that worked for State Farm, they'd come for that meeting,
Right.
18,000.
It lasted 2 or 3 weeks, right?
Yeah. So there was a lot of people to choose from, and
So we pitched it, and they said, sure, you know, you can get some people, whatever. So we sent this notice out to everybody that worked for State Farm. If you'd like to audition, send in a tape or whatever. We'd like to see what your talent is. Doesn't matter what it is. You can be a baton twirler, you can be whatever. So we got thousands, so many, and people, you know, sending me VHSs or just calling me on the phone, singing to me, you know, outside their office or whatever. And with my musical director, Todd Schroeder, genius, we put together 6 45-minute shows, each one different, for the beginning of these shows for 3 different years. And it was such a big hit. There was nothing like seeing your own and giving these people their 3, 4, 5 minutes of fame. You know, it was so wonderful, and I had such a good time doing it. And usually, you know, it only fills up at the end. By the time word got around, by the next day, everybody was there at 8 a.m. You know, they all like rushed to see their people and root them on, and just really.
Sure.
That was just very meaningful for me. I really enjoyed giving all those folks opportunity. And we did it for, you know, like
4 years. 4 different.
4 different.
Yeah, because State Farm didn't do it every.
They would do a show.
Right. Yeah.
So.
Well, let me weave it back around to the corporate shows.
Yeah.
Just to close things up. How do you define success in one of the shows that you do for the corporations? Define the feeling, the concept of success in a show.
I think it really goes back to the CEOs and the production house. You know, were they happy with it? You know, everyone that they hired, did we do what they wanted to? Did we get their message? And was it a success for, you know, their account execs? Did the CEO love it? You know, that this was like, one for the books, good job, see you next year.
Right.
That's, you know, you keep the account.
Oh, good. Yeah, that's good.
And to that point, what you do is so important nowadays. It wasn't so much back then, but what you do now is what they take home after we've done our bit with a live audience, they get to go back and they look at that video. So that video has to be really, really good for them. And for us, because that's what gets us back.
Well, it's a record of the show.
Yeah.
And it shows off the tremendous quality of work that you guys do. That's how I look at it. That my job is to make you and your team and your kids dancing for you look great.
Yeah, and you do. You do that. You do that.
We try.
But yeah, the value comes when you hear that applause at the end of a musical piece, or when an executive gets a standing ovation. You know, when you, it's like doing a Broadway show. When you get that applause, there's nothing else like it. So that's the value, is that you got the message across and they liked it.
And I think if we had an audience here right now, we'd get a standing applause for you two. Thank you very much. This has been great. The stories are wonderful.
We can go on and on.
We can all go on and on, but I want to thank you for being
well,
here
thank
with
you,
me
Randy.
today.
Thanks for asking us.
My
I mean,
pleasure.
it's always such a pleasure to work with you too. And I'll see you next month.
Next month. All right. Thank you.